Okay, all those watching, we appreciate this. This is the first episode of the Remnant podcast where we will be discussing Christian apologetics, overall Christian ministry, issues in the church, things that we see that we feel needs to be discussed, and then overall just having a good time talking about Jesus. So, for my very first guest, he is the pastor of Manchester Baptist Church in Manchester, Maryland. He has a doctor of ministry from Portland Seminary. He is a husband, father of 4 boys, so pray for him. He is a hiker, a world-class wordsmith, an all-around great guy, and he's my pastor. So, Pastor Dave, welcome, brother.
Ben, thank you so much. This is a joy. This is an honor to be your first guest on the podcast, and um, so yeah, thanks for having me, man.
The honor is most certainly mine. Just to kind of start this episode, what I wanted to do with this one is to highlight a very important, I would consider the most important vocation in Christian ministry, which is we could call it small town, normal, however you want, whatever adjective you want to put in front of it, but the pastor that just every day gets up and is a shepherd. And there's plenty of cute pastors that write many books and do YouTube, and they're out there in the world and they're affecting people's lives. And those are good. And we love those. But there is no replacement for the pastor that just does this every day with his flock. And that's what I wanted to highlight with you, Pastor Dave, because that is you to a T. It is the most important vocation that we have, period. So, and perhaps because of social media, but because of the big YouTube of the day, the YouTube pastors of the day. Again, I'm not necessarily saying there's anything wrong with those, but people need pastors, local pastors that they can call and go see. And I don't want to get away from and replacing those pastors with YouTube pastors that you've never met. Learn from those guys, read those books. Very good. A lot of them are very sound, but you need a local church, a local body that you worship with and learn from. So that's what I want to do in this episode, is to highlight that vocation, your vocation, which again, I think is the most important that we have in Christian ministry today. Um, so, that's what I believe. I think maybe for you could speak to your day to day as we get a little bit further on this. Um, but that's where the learning and the discipling comes from, is what you do every day. And maybe it's mundane sometimes, but I know that I could speak for myself and my family, but I know other people's in the church that would feel the same way, that you are beyond a blessing to them and what you do, even though it feels like it's just kind of part of the grind sometimes. You are highly blessed and favored, and we couldn't do it without you. So appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I mean, it is it's a joy. Um, it is an honor to be in pastoral ministry for sure. Yeah, there's hard days, but I mean, this is to be called by God in this way is truly a blessing for me. Um, and that I want to be clear. There there are a lot of other important jobs and callings out there. And just because this is where God has gifted me. Man, I think there's going to be so many more unsung heroes that are going to be much closer to Jesus in the other life. So
Perhaps.
I do thank you for that praise. Yeah, it is a joy and it's an honor, certainly.
Yeah, and they're certainly a very important, you know, even the lay person that goes out to Walmart and shares Jesus, they're gonna have a special place in heaven as well. But I think in terms of I'm gonna say small town pastor just because I wanna emphasize I'm not saying that as a lesser degree or lesser of importance, but I'm saying it as I feel like those are the forgotten ones. Those pastors are not the big book selling ones on YouTube, but they almost forgotten because they do this every day. This is just what they do. They don't have to, so that's what I really wanted to highlight. Not that there aren't other specialties in the Christian ministry that aren't important, but the small town pastor that does this every day, that goes see this person that you've known for 20 years in the hospital, you can't replace that. You cannot replace that with YouTube or books or anything like that. It is a special calling.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. It is a special calling. It's something. Uh, Being a small town pastor is it's unique from that standpoint. I think we have a lot of ideas about pastoral ministry where it's kind of like a job, and so you're here for a couple years, then you're there, and you kind of climb the ranks, climb the rung. Um, but there's a lot to be said about staying in one place. Um, a a uh, a a quote that's really stuck with me. This was from one of the church from one of the early desert fathers. I think it was Abba Anthony. He said, listen to something to the effect of, if you do these three things, you'll be good to go. And so it's one, always have God before your eyes. Two, never do anything you know is wrong. And number three, and I thought this was fascinating, he said, never leave where you are easily. And I thought that was really, really insightful. Never leave where you are easily. And so that's something that I've sort of taken to heart. Um, and I think because of that, I've seen blessings that I wouldn't have seen, if I were just to
Yeah,
continue to move on in other places. So yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, yeah, you were right when you told me that we're not going to get through half of these questions. But that's okay. That's okay. I like the natural flow of the conversation. Um, there is certainly something to be said about sticking around when it gets tough. Um, especially in the world we live. And you really emphasize is when you stay somewhere as a pastor 15, 20, 30 years, um, you're leaning on the call that God has done. You haven't decided I'm going to go open this door over here in this town and gone. You've stressed, well, listen, I'm where God wants me to be through prayer and fasting, perhaps, unless you feel the nudge to go somewhere else. You shouldn't. You shouldn't go anywhere else. Don't, there might be a bigger town or a bigger church or a better salary, somewhere else, but you're not called there. So don't go on your own. You listen to what God has, and you'll see, and from doing this a long time, you'll see the fruits. And you know that if it's a blessing, it's a blessing. You're going to stay put where you're at until God calls you elsewhere. And if He doesn't, don't go. It's not gonna be easy, but, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Anything that's easy comes, with its own price. So, yeah. Amen, brother, for sticking around.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's a joy. So
So, alright. So to the questions, there was a James Lipton started at, if you can't join them or if you can't beat them, you join them. So James Lipton did Inside the Actor's Studio many years ago, and it was really popular before all the podcasts. And his first question was always the same. Do you know what it was? Did you ever watch Inside the Actor's Studio?
no, no, I saw the SNL stuff, but I've never seen
Okay,
that.
okay, okay. So the first question he always asked is, "Where were you born?"
Mm, yeah. So I was born in DC and lived most of my life outside of DC in Montgomery County, kind of Gaithersburg, Rockville area. Um, and yeah, I mean, those are the formative years of my life. Yeah.
Okay, so for those in California, what he means by DC and around DC is he's grew up in Maryland, and so tell me about that. So kid in DC and around DC, you're growing up. When was the point? Do you have I'm curious to ask you this as a Southern Baptist, because a lot of Baptists have their save date written in their Bible. Do you have a moment in time that you would look to and say, "Oh, this is when I was saved," or is your story more of like, I can't really pinpoint a time, but I grew up in the church. I kind of, I was raised that way. Or did you have a moment where it was like, boom, this event happened and I was saved? Because there's different stories depending on who you ask. So I'm curious about yours. So when would you say that you were saved, or was it a gradual process?
Well, um, I would say I was saved and I am being saved currently. But if we're looking for that like specific moment or whatever, I can't really um define when that was. I feel like from what I can remember, I've always kind of grown up believing in God. I know that my mom got saved when I was 6 years old. And so that's kind of when we started going to a church, Southern Baptist Church. But I like, yeah, I've often tried to think back, like, what was there a time where I just didn't believe in God? And I really couldn't. So I always kind of grew up with this idea of God. Um, I was following him. During my teen years, it was mostly I wouldn't say works based, but it was maybe like a duty based, right? And it was during college. Now I believe I was saved at that point in time. I had kind of a weird view.
But you were
And it was
I don't think it's a weird view. I don't mean to cut you off, but it's as you're a kid. So you're trying to do what your parents tell you to do, and they're going to tell you that, oh, you know, I find myself even sometimes saying, what would Jesus think of this behavior or that thing? And so you develop as a kid, he's the father. So you don't want to disappoint the father. So perhaps you just you didn't have a full understanding of justification or sanctification, and so, but go ahead, continue.
no, yeah, and then so it was really in college. I went to a Christian college, and it was there where um, there was a literal revival that happened on our dorm. It was unlike anything that I've ever experienced, and so we all just really started following Christ closer. I got exposed to books that really kind of changed my perception of God. Um, the most formative one during that time probably being Desiring God by John Piper, where this is not simply about duty, it's about delight. That God wants us to
Uh-huh.
delight in him. And so that really kind of formed me during that time, and
just uh
began.
just just to show everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad. Just throw it a side note. I'm glad it was Piper that formed your should we say correct theology? Can we say whatever we want. Um, so yeah, formed your theology. Because well, interestingly enough, though, by saying that, in college is when most people, Christians that are going to a Christian, are formed as far as their understanding of many, many things, theology, uh, attributes of God, who God is, what he thinks about the world, what he thinks about us. And if you grew up going to church, some of that stuff will be touched on, but you're not in a sermon or even in Bible study. You could talk about a lot of these things, but you really don't dig down deep into a lot of those themes to develop your full understanding. And when you go to college, you could be given the wrong book. I'm going to call it wrong. You don't have to say that. I'll say it. The wrong book, and kind of start the trajectory to these other things that happen down the road, and that can develop into different types of these Christian non-Christian circles, where they think, because I went to a Christian college and this is a Christian author, but you have to be careful, because anybody can say that. And so anyway, it's good that you picked up a Piper book, um, especially Desiring God. Um, so anyway, you moving forward down into your life, as we're understanding who you are and learning about you. You go to college. So what was the doors that were open for your ministry at that time? So you're in college. Have you figured it all out yet? Have you sat back and said, I'm going to be the pastor of Manchester Baptist Church, or did you kind of just go, what in the world do I want to do with this? I mean, even if you want to speak to, the degree platform you were trying to go to, or how did all that develop, and what kind of doors that did God open for you to kind of get to where you're at today?
Yeah, definitely. I'm still trying to figure it all out. I'll be the first to tell you I do not have it all together. And what do I want to do when I grow up? I don't know. I'm 43.
You're
Who
amongst
knows what I
peers.
do when I grow up? Right. And so I now, right, hindsight's always 2020. But when I was going through college, I really did not want to go into ministry at all. I did not see a reason for me to do that. I was going to go out and go into business and things like that. And I remember, so I met my wife at Liberty. She was or at my college, and so she was 2 years behind me. And but she always knew I was going to go into ministry. Like it was obvious to her I was going to be a pastor. And I remember uh, this is many years later. We were dating for a couple years at the time, and I remember God calling me into ministry, and I was so mad at her. I was so mad at her. I said,
Because she
"Joy,
got it
you
right.
prayed me." Right. Well, no, I was like, "Joy, you prayed me into ministry, didn't you?" And she's like, "No, I didn't." I said, "Yes, you did. I know you prayed me into ministry." And I was so mad at her, right? Because I thought ministry was going to be one thing, and of course it wasn't. But the long and the short of it is, I really wasn't interested in doing ministry full time, but I graduated with a biblical studies major because God knew what He was doing, and I clearly didn't. And we started a young adult group at my church, and I said I'll help out, but I'm not interested in leading it. I'm theologically trained, so I can help out, but I don't want to lead the thing.
Mhm.
And so the guy that led it, he led it for a few months, and then things kind of went sideways for him, so he stepped down. And through a lot of prayer, he said, "Yeah, I'll take over for a little bit. This is all volunteer." And I guess about a year into doing that, we had grown to the point where I could either pursue business or I could pursue ministry, but I really couldn't do both. Like I couldn't do it all. And
Mhm.
so several days of fasting and prayer, I felt God saying, "Go ahead and quit your job." So I quit it and lived by faith for about 6 months. Like I wasn't getting paid, which was such a cool time. Man, just if God calls you to do something, man, just do it.
Y-
Uh,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
I
got
bet. Live by faith. What you mean is hungry. is actually what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. And God, God came through. Like I would get checks in the mail from my previous job. Oh, hey, we forgot to pay for this or pay for that. And it was just enough to sustain me until I could be on the staff for the next year. And so yeah, so then I was on staff for a couple years. Felt God calling me into senior pastor ministry, and came up to Manchester.
God. Thank God, right? So okay, so you were at a church. Now that church, was that the church you grew up in when your mom was saved and started taking you to church? That was the church where you ended up coming back and helping with the adult group, that same church?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Cool. So then somebody from, it's funny because you and I know Manchester. So for a lot of people that don't know Manchester, you sort of got to know it. But if you think small town Southern Baptist church, you pretty much have an idea of what Manchester Baptist Church is. So I'm just trying to picture in my head how you came here and how that how that happened. Because I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. I went to Reisterstown Baptist Church, which is, if you would walk out of Reisterstown Baptist Church and into Manchester Baptist Church, there wouldn't be a whole lot different. It's pretty much the same. Besides Reisterstown had a balcony. That was about it. But how did that process, and we don't have to go into full detail or make a big, but what was the process? What did God do? Was there an ad, or did someone call you, or how did the process to where you're like, okay, I'm going to go take this role as senior pastor? Were you out actively looking, or how did that happen? For those of us who may want to be interested in something like that, what was the process of getting you to Manchester Baptist Church?
Yeah. So I felt God calling me into the senior pastorate, and now I always thought I was a city person. Like I was looking to go into the city. Like I wanted the energy of the city. I wanted kind of young and youth, and kind of doing postmodern stuff. And now my wife is from West Virginia. Okay, and so every time I would go
Mm-hmm.
and hang out with her family, I was like, man, I can get used to this country stuff. I mean, it was nice. And so one thing led to another, and we started looking more towards the country. And yeah, so I put my application out there on my school had like a website thing you could upload your resume to, and the Southern Baptist had one you could do that. So I just kind of threw my resume out, and Manchester was one of the churches that got back to me, and uh, I don't want to tell you the whole story. Maybe I'll tell you in person.
Yeah, yeah, we
I,
could talk offline.
but I went up to the interview at Manchester, fully using that just to get experience.
Mhm.
In the interview process, like I was not really interested in coming to Manchester. Like it just wasn't interesting to me. And so Joy and I drive up, and I get a flat tire on the way up. Right, so I pull into the parking lot. I got a flat tire. Now, half my church is like, made of auto mechanics. And so Chris Reed was there, and, Chris was able to, put a new tire on and everything. And I go through the interview process. And I remember leaving, and I was telling Joy, I said, I think God might be calling us here. And,
Mm.
so, one thing led to another. They were kind of ready to hire me. They were without a pastor for about 2 years. I wanted to delay because I wanted to make sure that they knew what they were getting. I did my research on the church, so I knew what I was getting, but I really wanted to make sure they knew what I was getting. So I preached up here a few times, and um, had several meetings and things, and yeah, so I took over the church. My first sermon was February 14th, 2010. So
Okay, well, praise God that God called you up here. Um, and I do bet, if I were a betting man, I would bet that some of the people that were involved in that are still at Manchester Baptist Church. If I were a betting man, just because I know,
yeah, oh yeah,
uh,
oh yeah,
that's got to be, that's got to be awesome because you go up, they don't have a pastor, so they're, yeah, I don't want to say desperate, but they need a pastor, and they known this. And here's this kid, here's this kid who's been called, and they're like, oh man, perfect. And then you pull in with the flat tire, and you're like, well, this is what you got, guys. So, but, but, uh, but no, no, no. I'll be the first to say we love you and what you do and how you teach and how you preach and how you shepherd and all that. So, I'm just glad that God called you up here and that I get to sit there and listen to you. That's a blessing.
thank you. Yeah, it was a risk for the church. I mean, I was 27 years old. I mean, it was, they put a lot of faith into me. So that, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
awesome. Okay, so you're a Southern Baptist. I would in an earlier life, I would consider myself Southern Baptist. I would say, uh, I would say that I'm a Reformed Baptist now. I think I was a Reformed Baptist the whole time, but I didn't have a good understanding of what a Reformed Baptist was. And I also, when I first started researching it, I was in error in thinking that it was a new thing. But that's not reality. It's been around. It was, it's more popular now, perhaps, but Reformed Baptist, as what they believe, has always been around. Maybe just not coined or talked about a lot. But Southern Baptist has been, is what you think about. So I'm curious from my perspective because again, I was raised, when my dad started taking us to church, um, little bit before middle school age, it was a Southern Baptist church, and he was invited and he came. That's where we stayed. And for you, it sounds like you were a kid, so your mom took you to a Southern Baptist church. Now, as a minister, have you sat down and kind of looked at either the London Confession or now the Baptist confessions, and you're 100%. I don't want to get you in trouble here. You're a Southern Baptist. You live bleed Southern Baptist, or are you more like I'm a Southern Baptist preacher, but the Bible's wide open to a lot of different things, and sometimes there's you'll read something in a confession and in a different confession and you lean, oh well, in this confession I believe baptism, but in the Westminster Confession of Faith I believe this, and I just believe most people are just Presbyterians that don't baptize babies, at least in the Reformed perspective. And so that would separate you. You're either a covenant, by grace, covenant by works, Reformed Baptist, or you're Presbyterian if you're in the Reformed camp. So for you, I'm curious, Southern Baptist, why you're a Southern Baptist. Obviously, I know that that's where you grew up, so there's influence and there's tradition. But outside of that, um, why Southern Baptist?
Well, I mean, not to over spiritualize it, but I'm here because this is where God is calling me to be. All right. Now so from a spiritual perspective, that's kind of where I am. God desires me here, so that's where I am. Um, uh, the the Southern Baptists, um, they hold pretty close to what I believe. I would consider, like, if you had to hold a gun to my head, I would probably be considered a Reformed Baptist, historically Reformed Baptist. Um, but I hold that term loosely. Like, I'm not a, dogmatic on the issue, but I love the London Baptist Confession of 1689. If you or if your listeners have never read it, it is beautiful. It
I
is
have a
it
pocket
is a
version.
there you go, there you go. Yeah, so I mean, I've taught from the London Baptist Confession at the seminary that I'm associated with and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably consider myself a Reformed Baptist. Um,
And
yeah,
I knew that, and that's why I asked. and and to be fair, have I ever asked you that before? Have I asked you that before this?
I don't think so.
No, I have, but I listen, and I so yeah, no, my opinion, I would fall into the Reformed Baptist. I believe the 1689 London Baptist Confession is the closest representation of what I believe, and what the Bible says too. Not just what I believe, but what the Bible says. Um, but I have a love for Southern Baptists just because that's my tradition. But um, I will say that the Southern Baptist Convention, in which we are a part, has been a little bit governed and politicized. I think that it's too politicized. So to be affiliated in that way, um, is the reason I would say I'm a Reformed Baptist and not a Southern Baptist, because just simply because of that. They've, they're you could say a corporation really, without collecting money, I guess. But they've given millions of dollars all around the place, and if you dig into that, you probably wouldn't love it. Some of the folks that are involved, I would disagree a lot with. But it's an organization run by people, and when anything's run by people, it's run by people. So a church is simply a building full of people. So there are no perfect ones. There are no perfect doctrines that we can understand on this side. They're perfect, and when God lays them down, they're perfect. But we cannot perfectly interpret every single doctrine. We just have to um, lean on the Holy Spirit to help us and guide us, and things like confessions and church fathers and reformers and things that we can learn from. But that's why I wanted to ask, because I've heard you preach. I understand what you believe. Without talking about every single topic, every single doctrine out there, I have a pretty good understanding of what you believe. And I knew, I knew you were. There were some Reformed Baptists involved in that. Uh, but okay, so moving off of that one, because that kind of talk will get you canceled, man. When you talk about the Southern Baptist Convention, because they are, as far as evangelical world, they run the show. They run the show, no doubt about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, for better or worse, they run the show. And I would just add for your viewers who maybe aren't Southern Baptist, if you've met one Southern Baptist, you've met one Southern Baptist. We are all different. If you see some stuff going on that's kind of squirrely, just understand that's probably not representative of most Baptist churches. So,
And you could say that for any denomination, and or you could say it for a denomination that you would look at or consider that's kind of has some squirrely teaching. There could be a guy in there that's just gone there his whole life, and he's like, "Look, I don't believe half this stuff, but this is my family." And you get it on both sides. You really do.
mhm.
Okay, so we've learned your story, how you got to here, what you believe, why you're a Southern Baptist, or why you believe what you believe. Have you had any that you could point to, and obviously share what you want, and don't what you don't, but have there been moments throughout your ministry? I'm certain that there have been, but that you would share that have been a low point that you would consider, man, this was a tough season, this was a tough year. You've had 4 kids. Each of those bring their own challenges. You've been married a long time. You've been pastoring a church a long time. I guarantee it's been ebb and flow of of, I won't say joy or contentment because those you find in the Lord, but happiness and flows so if you could share anything about, because again, we're highlighting the small town pastoral ministry. And have there been moments where you're like, God, why did you call me here? You know, why am I here, Lord? Can you give me, arguing with them like a psalmist? Can you give me something to delight in? Could you share anything that would be insightful?
Yeah. I think anyone who says they have, or any pastor who says they haven't, you probably don't want to sit under their teaching.
Amen.
The reality, yeah, I mean, it's pastoral ministry, if it's done right, is hard. One of my mentors said, anyone who wants to be a pastor should spend 6 months as a Middle Eastern shepherd, because boy, is it tough. I mean, the sheep, they don't say thank you when you pick them full of mites and everything like that, and they bite and they're mean and they do their own thing. And so yeah, there's been some low points. Um, at my last church, the church I grew up in, it was now I didn't know this at the time because I was brand new in ministry. But it was a sick church. It was just spiritually sick. I was there. I was on staff for like 3 years, and I think I saw like three different like complete staff turnovers. Like, I mean,
Wow.
it was just sick, you know. And so, I didn't understand church politics. I didn't understand, the need to kind of, help people along. I just thought, well, the Bible says this, so let's do it. And you start doing that, you give people whiplash, and you can end up in a whole world of trouble real quick. And then the pastor was spiritually sick as well, and he had gotten fired from his previous church. Okay, so I think he had never fully dealt with that, and so when there was a group of people that really liked my teaching and preaching, I think he got kind of nervous.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot of he wanted to squash any attempt at me taking over something. Like, I don't know what he was thinking I would do. And so the last about 18 months was really, really difficult for me, um, because the leader of the church was after me. He was hindering my ministry there, and I probably dealt with clinical depression. Okay, I probably should have seen somebody, but I didn't, because I was young and I'm a man, so I
Yeah.
don't need to
Yeah.
see.
Mhm.
And so that was a really formative time. I wouldn't wish that time on anybody ever. But I also saw how God used that time to inform my ministry now. Okay, and how to really engage with people. Not just say, well, this is what we're doing, and how to love people and how to deal with just really tough situations. So yeah, that was a really tough time. Every now and then it rears its head, and I have to go to the Lord and say, nope, Lord, I forgive these people. I forgive these people. It's over with. It's done. Because it was a really hard time. Um, so that was kind of one area that really got me on the kick for church health. And so church health is kind of one of my hot buttons. I work with a group that goes into hurting churches, and kind of helps them heal through those kind of hurt stuff. Um, but then one other formative time, close to a decade ago, about 8 years, 9 years, we Manchester Baptist really wasn't healthy. The church wasn't really healthy when I came up here, and they would agree with that. And so we started to work on health. And about 8 years in, the people that wanted to remain unhealthy and kind of do their thing, they really couldn't hide anymore because we got to a place of health. And so the gossip was down, and the secret meetings and things like this didn't happen. And so this group kind of felt like they were losing power, losing control. And so if you can't hide, you try to make yourself bigger than you are. And so they tried to cause division. They began holding secret meetings and everything like that. And I um it was tough because I really just wanted to burn those bridges and say, 5 6 so long Hicks, right? Um, but God really just, by this time, God had worked in my heart to really love these people. And so even in the midst of their just poison, I kept reaching out to them, trying to come together, trying to say, hey, let's talk through this, let's work through this. Unfortunately, after a couple months of doing that, I mean, it was just bad faith. They weren't really interested in submission or anything, and so we had to part ways. But that part, I mean, it really hurt. I mean, as a shepherd, even if you got to get rid of the part of your flock, even if it's diseased or whatever, it still hurts. It still hurts,
Yeah. Right.
and so yeah, so that was a really tough time. It was a time when I wasn't sure really how the church felt. Like, were they going to go with me? I mean, I'd only been here for 8 years. These other people had been here for decades. Um, and but the church was in a place that said, nope, we're not dealing with this garbage. We're not dealing with these problems. And God was very faithful to me during those times because there was a lot of prayer where I'd say, Lord, like if I screwed up here, I mean, just let me know and I'll go and I'll apologize and I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Like all I want is what you want. And God during that time, he would bring other people who I didn't even know to give me words of encouragement, saying, look, you did the right thing here. And so yeah, it was yeah, those are two of the kind of big ones. Yeah.
Well, sounds like those people that had stuck it out and really bought into the idea of a healthy church, those ones that were there, they realized that you were being a faithful shepherd. And they said, well, look, we're in a place now that's growing um, and we're getting healthy. And regardless of friendships, that's it's difficult. It's difficult because relationships, are emotional and they can hurt, and severing any isn't good. But especially when you've 8 years of shepherding these people and just kind of hoping and praying that they're gonna, that and then they kind of turn on you is kind of what I'm hearing is a tough spot to be in. But it sounds like by the others around you that you were faithful and you did the right thing, and everybody else recognized that, and the ones that couldn't, they were toxic anyway. Is what at the end of the day, and hopefully
Yeah.
we pray that they found their own, they got with the Lord, and they were some stuff figured out inside of them. But as far as Manchester, then it was healthy and it was good move for that body. That's kind of what I can judge based on your story. So painful times, hard times. What about good times? Where have there been moments where you're like, that was a good year, man. That one was. thank you, Lord. You see the blessings, and you say, just thank you for putting me here. Because I hope that I hope that there's just as much times of praise and joy than there are sorrow. I'm hoping that's the case. It's a tough gig that you're in. Um, but have there been times where you go, man, God, this was awesome. This really made me feel like you got me, and these people have made me feel loved and heard. And tell me about one of those times.
Yeah, so, um, yeah, you know, this is a great question. Yeah, there have been, really good high points, especially when you've been at a place for 16 years. So I've been here for 16 years, and, there hasn't been many of like, the high points that you'll hear at, like a rally or like a conference, right? You know, "Oh, I preached and, 1,000 people came to Christ," or whatever.
Type.
Yeah, and so, but what I have seen I've been able to track people over 16 years and see their growth and see their family's growth and see where they were and, like, where they are now, and, it's been absolutely beautiful, to see because I think that's really where genuine change happens. I mean, yeah, okay, it's in the big moment, but then it's that follow up and that's the follow through. And so just watching people take those next steps, um, that you don't even see necessarily like in the moment, but a couple years down the road, you say, man, like I remember where you were and I see where you are now. And I mean, it's absolutely powerful. Um, something else a high point this year is, for a long, long time, many years, I've wanted to get people going on mission trips. My heart is, in mission trips. I love to travel. I used to go to Mexico about every 3 or 4 months on, mission trips, and so that just really wasn't a part of the church culture. They had done some stuff back in the '90s and early 2000s, but really hadn't done much, since then. And we this year went on our first real church-wide mission trip, and we took 10 people, including myself, and 8 of us had never been on a mission trip. And so it was just this beautiful breath of fresh air. The church was all behind it, and just to see kind of that forward movement. They all are ready to go back next year. We're ready to take a bunch of people back. So
Well, you
Ben, you're
went to
more than welcome to
Jamaica
come if
on
you want
spring
here.
break, so not really fair. I'm
Right.
just kidding.
Yeah, Montego Bay on, spring
Yeah,
break, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Well, if that's gonna
I
be
mean, it
if
was
you're gonna go on a mission trip for the church in all these years, it's really easy to squeeze in like, "Hey, next year, why don't we go to Cancun?" So I get good job, pastor.
right, right. Yeah, so that was fun.
And you took your
Uh,
sons? What, 2 sons? The 2 sons go? Yeah,
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 so I made kind of a, I don't know, a promise or a pact or something with my kids. I said, "Look, when you turn 13, we're gonna go on a man's trip, right? Show you about the world, right?" And so that got kind of morphed into, well, let's take them on their first mission trip when they turn 13, and then spend a couple more days and kind of just talk about life and everything. And so yeah, so I did that with Sam, my oldest, a couple years back. We went to London, and then my second born, Micah, he's a social butterfly, and so he didn't want to go just with dad. He wanted to go with the whole team, and so
yeah,
we went down to Jamaica with that whole team. So yeah, it was
yeah,
great.
yeah, awesome. Well, I know that, there was a lot of excitement in the church about that trip, and, so no, it's amazing, and it's, when churches do those type of things together, it just speaks to the healthiness of the church, because there's nothing, my I've never gone on a mission trip myself, but my stepdad and mom have gone to Africa. They used to do it all the time, and I think just time has got away. But I couldn't even tell you how many times, 6, 7 times maybe. My stepdad has gone, and my mom has gone a few times too. I mean, every year it was a thing they did, and you can't replace that. The service that you're giving to other people away from your own home and country. You can't replace it. There's something to be said about going to Baltimore City or DC and handing out sandwiches and stuff. That's all good and faithful service. But when you get out of your own comfort zone, getting on a plane for hours and going in a different place and country that you've never been, um, God really works on not only the service that you're providing to the people, but on you and your own heart. And it's a great blessing, and I have to go one day. We'll try to. It would be amazing to get all of them to go. That would be some strategic planning on our part, but at least maybe Brittany and I can go one of these days. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
so moving on, I think we'll spend another 10 or so minutes on here, maybe yeah, 10 or 15 minutes. Um, so because I'm an apologetics, I'm in an apologetic space. We got to do something apologetic. We haven't, we beat up the Southern Baptist Convention just a tiny little bit. But I wanted to ask you from a pastoral perspective and from somebody who does this every day. Um, First, I don't know how in tune you intentionally be about what's out there in the world, what's being taught out there in the world, or topics and things that come up in the evangelical culture today. I'm sure you're aware of some hot ticket items. But what I wanted to ask you is what affects the church. We understand the opposition to the church and the culture and the secular culture, which, by the way, is not the lack of religion. It is a different religion. Just to put that out there. Secularism is not the lack of a religion. It is something actively against it. It's not, but anyway, we don't have to go off on that tangent. But in the church today, are there teachings and are there things that you see maybe on mainstream and, um, that that's a flawed teaching that's popular, or that your people come to you and they say, perhaps, what do you think about this? Or hey, I read this book from this author. Or is there anything you see that you hear in the world, or when people talk to you, or in our conversations with your congregation, that's a constant that you're like, well, you maybe steer away from this teaching, or is it just a traditional antinomianism, or things that you've seen throughout history that rears its head sometimes, or works-based salvation, or the lack of understanding of who God really is? Or is it something that's more specific to these times that you see or hear that you can pinpoint to say, I've been hearing this a lot more, and people really need to be diligent in reading their Bible and listening to sound preaching to steer clear of this? Is there anything you can say that you've seen recently, or
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so my context is going to be very different than others. I'm in the country. It's got a quasi culture of Christianity.
Mhm.
We're really, uh, at least in my opinion, not hit too hard with some of the weird stuff coming out now, like from the cities. We're just it's sort of insular now. It is coming down the road. But for me, right now, the thing that kind of occupies my mind is probably justification without sanctification. Okay.
Mhm. Mm.
The idea of it's called easy believism, or um,
Gone to church my
you know
whole life. Yeah.
yeah, I've gone to church my whole life. It's this idea where there's no real kind of life change. There's no real commitment to deepen your walk with God. Um, if you look at the Gospels, right? I mean, nearly everyone who came into contact with Christ
was radically changed, either for better
Uh-huh,
or worse, right? I
uh-huh.
mean, you couldn't just continue going down the path you were going, which was especially true for the believers. Um, and the danger behind this, I think, is that you tend to become what you love. Okay, whatever you love is what you'll eventually look like. And and so if we aren't becoming like Christ, what's going on? I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to reach perfection this side of heaven, right? Everyone begins at a certain place and kind of travels from there. So right, Ben, you becoming like Christ is going to look very different than me becoming like Christ. But I feel like there's just this lack of urgency of being conformed to Christ in Western Christianity in general. That's something that we just don't see in the Southern Hemisphere, Africa, Asia, like the places where we see Christianity growing. Like, I mean, because there's a cost. Like, if you become a Christian, there's a cost, and we've just forgotten that. So that would kind of be
Yeah,
my perspective.
as soon as you said your perspective will be different because we live in a country town, man. I mean, it's funny when people aren't familiar with Maryland. When you tell someone you live in Maryland, they immediately think DC, like you're as blue as it gets. Only to say that to understand the political dynamic that we're talking about. Not so they don't understand that what Carroll County is. It's the opposite of that. So it's funny when you say, "Oh, I'm in Maryland. We're in the country." They're like, Maryland? They've been voted blue forever. Like so for people that don't understand, we live in essentially the Bible Belt of our area. Everybody has it's not when you talk about Jesus, isn't weird. You're not going to get really chastised if you say the word of Jesus out in town. It's just something that's still part of our everyday vernacular. But with
Right.
that comes uh, what I would say, something that you and what I talk about a lot on my channel is the seriousness of sin, or the lack of the seriousness of sin, the holiness, in which you bring up. I'm a Puritan reader. They are very concerned with the holiness in which you will attempt to become, not for holiness sake, not so you can stand up and say it to other people, because you're going to heaven one day, assuming you're a Christian. And J.C. Ryle talks about in the book called Holiness, which I want to talk to you about. I want to do a complete other episode on books alone, because my wife was like, look, you can't ask him the book thing because you'll keep going. So I think the next one we'll just talk about books. But anyway, just for this one, if no one's read the J.C. Ryle Holiness, you should read it every year, because you're not holy for holiness sake. You are being conformed to how Jesus is. And also, the side point to that is you're going to a place, God willing, that is perfectly holy. How do you think, if you're unholy, you're going to fit in a place like this? You're training yourself to be a resident of heaven. And obviously you pass and you become and all that. But while you're on this earth, that you should be striving for that. So the Christian that just attends the church and just does his own thing, or listens to this or watches this. It's tough to have those conversations when you put videos out like this, because immediately people will say you're a hypocrite. We're not being a hypocrite. What we're saying is the sin in which you just committed and the sin in which you continue to commit. Look at the cross and what was paid for that sin, and the sin that you love. Really, it's a love of sin, or a lack of hate of sin, really. If you don't hate your sin, you simply need to check your heart, because you have to have an understanding of what sin has done and what it is. And that is what leads you to the repentance. Without that, you really have to check your justification, because that's part of it. That's part of the deal. Now it's a lifelong sanctification is a lifelong process. It's not going to happen overnight. But there should be I did a video about cussing, and it's cussing is one of those things that you get a lot of heat if you even say it, because we're in 2026. Everybody sins. But my point in saying it was not to say if you cuss, you're going to hell or you're not a Christian. My point is to say it's still a sin. You should hate it the same. That sin, as small as you think, was what Jesus had to die for. You had to die for, really. He took your place. So don't toy with it. Don't play with it. It's not a toy. And when you have that type of mentality where it's a toy that you hang around with, it becomes this really low idea of sin, of it's like well, everybody sins. That's a bad thing to say as a Christian. Because you want to be changed gradually in your life. You don't want to stay the same. There should be fruits that are displayed that are vastly different, not a little different, vastly different from the rest of the world. And the closer you are is when you really need to look and say, what's going on here? Have I really been changed? Or am I just acting like I've been changed?
Well, right. I mean, and it's hard to look at the cross and say sin's no big deal.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's the reality. And I think that this often comes back even to our view of God. And if you legitimately say, hey, sin's not a big deal, I would do some work with that book Holiness. Like learn who God is. And see his holiness from that perspective. Go read Isaiah 6 and
Mm.
I mean, just some of these places that speak on the holiness of God, because
Send me, Lord.
uh yeah, um his sin is, I mean, sin is violence to the holiness of God. I mean, that's what I mean, it's and so yeah. Yeah, see kind of what's going on in your heart. The first thing is to just kind of admit it. Hey, I don't see sin as a big deal. And that's okay if that's where you are, but just don't stay there. Like let's figure some stuff out, you know.
That's a good
So
place to be, because that's what it takes. Like, understanding where you're at. Not a lot of times I think we don't actually say where we're at. We say where we want to be. And if you're at a place, like say you've gone to church your whole life, you grew up there, and you're at a place and you don't know, you go, man, I thought I would care about sin more than this at this point. At least at least you can go talk to somebody by recognizing that, by saying, well, I'm righteous, but then you go home and you have all these sins. That's dangerous. That's a dangerous place to be, because you don't know you have no idea what your drive home is gonna be like, what kind of medical condition is gonna happen. Your time is your time is your time. It's a dangerous place to think you're one way and actually be another way. And that's the true testament to a Christian, admitting the bad stuff, the stuff that you don't want to admit, but that's part of the deal. I mean, because look at the people Jesus goes up to. He tells people about themselves. He goes, "Yeah, the guy you're with isn't your husband, and you've had a bunch before." So, but she had to get to that point of going, "Oh, he actually knows me. Like, Jesus actually knows us. We're not hiding." So, uh, but anyway, yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, and it was so. As soon as you said that it was, you have a different perspective. It was perfectly fitting for you and our area specifically. Um, but but man, I have some more, but I don't. I think there's many. If you wouldn't mind, there's many of episodes we could do. You're my brother. You're right down the road. Um, so I think we could do this again. I think we can maybe make it topic based, or I do want to do one about books because it's one of the things I love talking about the most. Just because I'm a reader, you know, I'm a writer, I'm a reader, and that it's just fun. It's just really fun to talk about that stuff. So I think we need to if you're up for it, spend a podcast talking about books. I mean, novels, nonfiction, the whole nine, Christian books, non-Christian books. What got you to here? It would be that would be a very fun conversation to me because I can kind of look at a book in timeline of my life. That's how I view them. I remember where I was when I finished this, or where I was when I read that chapter. I can even do sometimes, depending on the book, and it shows me my life. So I want to do that one. But I think
Yeah.
um, I think at least we've highlighted what you do, your vocation, the importance of it, and talked about your life, learned about your history, learned about who you are, talked about some dangers in churches and reasons we believe what we believe. But I think we'll end this one and schedule the next one if you're up for it because it's been fun for me. I know you're a busy
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. No, this was a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it added into your busy routine with writing your sermons and trying to figure out what song to play and I think I don't know if are you still teaching a class are you still teaching a class? Is that a weekly or what are you doing with that?
Yeah. Yeah. So the school year ended. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
off.
there you go.
I don't go back on. Yeah. I don't go back teaching until I think about Octoberish, something like
Well,
that. So a
nice
month.
break.
Yeah.
Nice break. Well, then you fit this in the time you were teaching. There you go. So it's not any added time. But Pastor Dave, I appreciate you, man. I love you. I thank you for coming on, being my first guest, and I thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Ben, this was great. Thank you so much.